Okay, so this is my second episode with Dylan Linde. I just wanted to have a disclaimer because after our last episode, I really wanted the audio quality to be a lot better. So I invested in some really good audio equipment. But unfortunately today when setting it up, there were some technical difficulties with the mixer. And so we had to share one mic again. I have done some noise reduction and the quality is not too bad, but I just want to have a disclaimer so that people know that in the future the quality will be a lot better. But we just felt that the conversation was too good to not upload it. So I hope you enjoy. Okay, it's always hard starting, but welcome back to, this is our second sit-down interview. And yeah, first of all, I'd like to mention that I'm making an effort to swear less. Because after listening to past podcasts, I realised how much I swear. So I've got a swear jar. And yeah, whenever I swear, I'm going to put $1 in the swear jar. And then I don't know what we do with the money. We can donate to like kids who can't speak or some shit.
Is there a particular reason you don't want to swear?
Yeah, I feel like it just takes away like the impact of the words. Like if you say like fuck, like shit. That doesn't count, does it?
Yeah, no.
Okay. If you say the F word like once every, like, I don't know, month, then like has way more of an impact than if you say like 10 times in a sentence. And also, honestly, I feel like my higher self wouldn't swear. So, yeah. But I do like swearing, I think. Apparently, like, have you heard that people who swear are more likely to be more honest? I've heard that. I kind of reckon that's true. Like, they're not filtering something.
No, I think that ship sailed anyway. Like the word fuck has no power anymore because it gets used like in every second sentence.
And I guess that constitutes the question, what constitutes a swear word? Like, for me, I'm just starting with the F word and then we'll go from there. But like, is shit a swear word?
Well, my grandma would say yes.
True.
But
it's all relative.
But are we performing for grandparents, you know?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a reasonable ambition, though, to swear less, because it'll probably encourage you to be more thoughtful with how you present yourself. Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of people, especially in the spiritual community, believe that like your words have so much power and they create spells around you and things like that. I think Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. in his book The Four Agreements, one of his agreements is be impeccable with your word and how, because in a way it's kind of like that. Well, I call it the standard deviations, right? Like it starts with a thought and then it goes to a word and then a word goes to an action and whatnot. So, yeah, I think there's something to that. And that's actually a good point. I think the awareness and that thoughtfulness is probably the better thing. Yeah. But my one thing is swearing is also relatable. Like it lets people know that you're not putting on airs and graces, I suppose. So in some ways, like when you hear someone say fuck on a podcast, it's signaling to you that like this person is relaxed, I guess. Like they're not taking themselves super seriously. That's a good point. Yeah, I think as well there's part of me that's like, oh, it's a bit feral. Like my mum would be like, it's feral, like stop swearing, because she never swears. But at the same time, like there's always going to be a bit of hood rat in me. So like I'm always going to kind of honour that, I suppose. Yeah. We've also got upgraded equipment today. We had some technical difficulties, but we have a stand. I actually think it's really cool, like progressing through the podcast, just starting with a microphone with myself. And then like we did our interview and you could hear every time we like bang the table. I'm like, oh, that's why people use those like boom arms. And it's like I understand it for myself rather than just like copying what experts say to do. So that's like been a cool thing as well. Yeah. So what's some breakthroughs that you've been having lately? Well, lots of breakthroughs, I guess. Probably the main one recently is realizing how almost all of my neuroses are directly attributable to things that happened when I was like a really small child. And yeah, exploring that. And I reckon it's probably the same for everyone or almost everyone. And the thing is, we just don't, like, most people just don't go there.
Do you have, like, an example?
Yeah, so my parents divorced when I was, like, 2, And then I went from my mum to live with my dad when I was about 4. And I've been carrying shame and fear around those things for my whole life ever since. So those events like shaped the whole way I looked at the world, and I've only realised this recently. And it's like I've been kind of shooting in the dark, like just feeling these things and not understanding it. But now I actually see why, and it's been pretty cool.
So how do you feel like it's affected you now? Like,
well, I did this practice. I'm doing this thing called an identity detox, and it involves like some practical exercises where like it's sort of like the internal family systems you talk about, in a way where you like role play and you like, visualize yourself comforting yourself as a child and like talking to yourself as a child and what you would say to them. And it kind of really cleared my psyche around that a lot. Like it made what had been like a wound in my soul is kind of, it feels like it's been purged almost. And it's helped me to like let go of a lot of that fear and need to control, and and just sort of be a bit easier on myself. Like instead of thinking like I'm a piece of shit because I'm weak and like I get easily bothered by things and stuff. It's like, oh, the reason for that is because I'm still that little kid, and I've never addressed it. So
it's, I think like speaking to you like inner child or like visualizing, because that's a lot of like cognitive behavior therapy. So it's a lot of stuff I've done in psychology is like go back to a certain time, picture me as a child and like what would I say to her now. And it does make it so easier to say be nicer to yourself, because even like for me, picturing me at like 10 years old when I first like got fat as a kid, like I wouldn't tell her you're a piece of shit, like you're ugly. So it's like, and that's you. So it's like it's a weird thing where you're forced to be nicer to yourself. But like, do you feel like was it really difficult and like painful for you to like kind of revisit these things?
It was embarrassing.
Right.
And that helped me to identify that, like, as a kid, I internalized a feeling of shame and responsibility, and then I'm still carrying that. So I still think it's like something to be ashamed of that I felt that way, like I couldn't cope as a kid.
Right.
So when I was doing it with the person who's facilitating the course,
is this Bruno?
Yeah, Bruno. Bruno, who's my friend from Brazil. I was embarrassed, and I was like, I felt like I was almost laughing at myself.
Like you were embarrassed in front of her or in front of yourself?
Bit of both. Yeah. Like, but by doing it, by the end of it, I was like, hey, there is nothing to be embarrassed about.
Yeah.
Like it helped me to realise that.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel like shame is such an interesting one, isn't it? Like the fact that just the word makes you like squirm. Like I hate, like, you know, it's one of those things like I try to have no part of my mind that I can't touch, or else I feel like I'm not free within myself. And I still carry shame and it's hard. But I think like Brene Brown has a really good quote about shame. She said like it needs like 3 things to, if you put it in a petri dish, it needs 3 things to thrive: secrecy, judgment, and I can't remember the last one. But I thought that was really good, because I thought shame's one of those things where the more you keep it to yourself, the bigger it gets, or like the harder it is. So then you hear someone else who says the same thing and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know, like other people, it makes it so much better. Like, so it's like good that you like, you know, sharing this as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go on.
Oh no, that's all good. Yeah.
It's all like, it's actually shame. Like I feel ashamed about admitting to feeling shame.
Right. Yeah.
Like no one wants to be the person who's like, oh yeah, I have shame. I walk around the world filled with shame, and like that's embarrassing.
Right.
Like you don't want it. No one wants to be seen that way.
Yeah.
Like, so even that is like hard to admit.
Right. But that's interesting, because from my point of view, I feel like I just presume every single person has shame, like shame and guilt. I just found the quote. If you put shame in a petri dish and cover it with judgment, silence and secrecy, you create the perfect environment for shame to grow until it makes its way into every corner and crevice of your life. I think that's interesting. Judgment, silence and secrecy. Secrecy is such a big one with it. But, yeah. So, like, going forward, like, how do you feel like, because you seem to have a new outlook. Even seeing you today, you just seem lighter, you seem happy, you seem, like, almost playful, like,
yeah.
And, like, is it this course that's like, made this change in you?
I think it's helped. Yeah, it's helped just to, even just identifying it and, like, admitting to myself that was still with me and just being like, hey, and also, and just realizing how there's no foundation to it. Like, there's no reason to feel that way. And me saying to my childhood self, like, you didn't do anything wrong. Like, you don't have to be ashamed about this. You're just a kid. Like, yeah, it sounds hokey, but that actually has penetrated my psyche now. And yeah, I guess the burden has somewhat lifted, and it's that whole thing of, like, sometimes all you need is awareness. Like, awareness of what's going on inside you can change the way you view life. Like, you don't need to, like, have some magic program or, like, do this hectic practice. You just need to actually confront what's inside you and like, be aware of it. And that's what I found. Yeah.
Do you mean as in, like, just being aware these things will come up naturally? Like, you don't have to go looking for them?
Oh, I think you have to look. But yeah, just whether it just comes to you in an epiphany or whether you go looking for it. Either way, actually knowing what your brain is doing and, like, how it works, that gives you power. Like,
yeah, that's so true. I feel as well that, like, I always like to step back and see the bigger picture, and, like, knowing that it stems from awareness. I feel like awareness is, like, such a foundation. Like, and if you can just figure out some of these foundations, like constantly being aware, which you can cultivate through meditation and stuff. I think foundations is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Like, what are my foundations? And then how can I build everything else from that? Like, for example, like, health is a big one for me at the moment. So making sure my health is good, my mental health, my physical health, and then, like, that's my foundation. So then anything else I add to that, work, whatever, has to come after that. Like, and so I'm kind of trying to, like, in my mind, create a mind map of, like, what are the foundations? Like, what are the necessities, like, that I can take everywhere where I go? Yeah, and that's been an interesting thing to kind of ponder.
Sounds like you're also figuring out, like, what's important to you, like, what your priorities are.
Yeah, that's actually really true. I feel like the last year has been like that for me, because I used to be such, like, a chaser, like, my life's out there, chase it, really abandoned myself. I think a lot of that was because I've had a lot of shame, a lot of didn't like a lot of things about myself, a lot of, trauma. So I ran away from myself. I didn't want to be at home in myself. And I think I've had to come home to myself and really build a home, plant the seeds, plant a garden, and stop chasing. And I think as well, like, I'm a double air sign. So people into, like, astrology, even if you're not, like, my, like, sun sign is Aquarius, which is air, and then my rising is Gemini, which is also air. So the theory behind it is that being more of an air person, you're like, you live up in the clouds and you're daydreaming and imaginative, and it's also associated with communication. So you like talking about ideas and things like that, but then actually grounding things into the ground is really difficult. And I, like, wherever I know I believe in astrology, that is very true for me. I find it very hard to ground things into reality, or not necessarily do the work, but just, like, I don't know, put down roots. And for the last year, that's been a really important thing for me, is trying to put down roots. And I've done that physically, like, moved into a house and invested in making that, like, a beautiful place, and focusing on my health is another one. And yeah, just, like, stop chasing life out there over the hills and finding what I need to be happy. It was just, those foundations again. So, yeah.
Is part of that putting less emphasis on what other people think of you, or like validation from external things?
Yeah, I think in a way, because I've realised pretty recently that, like, everybody says, like, when you get diagnosed with autism, that you go through a phase that's pretty difficult where you start to analyse the mask and you get confused about who the mask is and who you are, and you have to process that, and a lot of people find that really difficult. And when people said that to me, I kind of humoured that thought, like I was a bit arrogant and thought, no, I'm pretty self-aware, already do a lot of work to know myself, and I'm not going to have a problem with that. But it's interesting how over the past few months, in different ways I've thought about it, I've realised that the mask isn't the face I put onto society. I feel like I'm pretty authentic about who I am, but it's the mask is the filter that everything that I am and do and is passes through before it's like ready to be seen by other people. So I'm always analysing myself from like 100 different perspectives, like to make sure that I can be, it's not even be good enough for them, but it's so that they can see me, so that they don't misinterpret me. And I think that the last few months I've stopped trying to, like, I've stopped caring about that filter. I've been way less social. I spend way more time by myself, and I actually really enjoy it. It's like I get to exist in my own world and create my own world, and I don't have to do that. So in that way, I think yes. Yeah.
Is it possible that you could develop the ability, like, once you sort of are comfortable with how you're being on your own, develop the ability to still stay in that sort of non-self-conscious state even when you're with other people? Or is that impossible? Like, does it just draw you too far outside of your comfort zone?
I think it depends on the people I'm around a lot, I reckon, because I think some people are hell-bent on seeing you in a negative light, or they see you how they want to see you, or they see you how they're seeing you as a reflection of themselves. And I would always be at their feet trying to prove that I'm like not what they think I am, or just like that I'm, this or that. And I stopped caring about that. So I think it's almost like it's a waste of energy to like get caught up on these little like nuances in like social contracts, or not social contracts, social communications that are like, I just don't have time for that shit anymore. It just slows me down. And I think I can only really be around other people who just like don't care about that either. Like, yeah, I might be a bit egotistical sometimes, or I might be like a bit weird sometimes, but just like let it go and continue on with like the flow of what is actually like coming out of me, if that makes sense. Like, and so I think I'm trying to like leave it behind, and not think about it so much. But I think a part of that is not being around people who keep trying to reflect back to me like an image of me that's not me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a difficult balance. Yeah, and then it also comes down to like, because I know that I think we both struggle with a sense of obligation, or like the need to be there for people or to help people. And then, as we were talking about just before, it can become hard to identify whether you're doing something for pure reasons, or you're doing it like just because you want someone to like you, or like you want someone to say thanks and then you feel good about yourself.
Yeah, the people pleasing thing. And it's interesting because on the one hand, like, yeah, it's important to be accepted to the tribe or whatever. But we were saying before how it's interesting. It's like, because you were saying that like you would convince yourself like that, oh no, this is probably good, like for me to go to this social event or whatever. But then like, so since like, because I feel like I've had stronger boundaries over time with saying no to things that you don't want to go, not people pleasing, whatever. And like, what have you found doing that? Do you reckon?
it feels good, but the question I have for myself is like, am I just creating a self-reinforcing loop? Like, I want to be on my own. I'm being assertive to say no to people, so then I can be on my own, and that feels good. So therefore, it's a good thing, and I'll keep doing it. And I'm not sure. I think it's possible that I'm buying into like a fear of connection. Like maybe that's part of the root of it, and so I'm justifying to myself cutting myself off from people because then I'm in my comfort zone and I'm in control.
Right. Okay. So you're still wondering to a degree how much of it is like a fear response rather than right.
I mean, I think there's probably a bit of both. Like part of it is just I'm being more deliberate with what I do with my time, but then part of it might also be that I've had a lifelong fear of like connection and commitment, and so I'm pushing back against that.
Mm-hmm. And that commitment's even with friendships, right? Like,
yeah, like even the least.
I think all the time actually about in our last podcast how you said like you meet up with someone new on a Monday or whatever, then you're like shit, I've got to meet up with them like every week now, and it's like I totally feel that like but like what is it, if you don't mind me asking, like what about connection is like so scary for you?
I think for me it goes back to there's probably two main things. On the one side is fear of people having expectations of me. Mm-hmm. And then the other part of it is fear of being let down. So like I don't trust people. I think people are going to disappoint me. So I might as well just never get close so that I don't face that prospect. So
it's interesting how like it's the same thing on both sides. Like you're scared that someone's going to disappoint you and you're scared that you're going to disappoint.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like either I'm going to be the one that does damage or someone will damage me. So it's hard for me to visualize a scenario where like it's just going to be mutually good and like no one will end up hurt.
But what if it's like you end up hurt, but that's okay?
Yeah.
Like you're both strong enough to get through it and like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, like I have done it. I've had relationships and stuff and put my heart on the line. But it goes against my natural instinct to like protect myself and to protect other people from me. So
interesting.
Yeah, it's a bit cooked. Do you feel any of that? Like either of those things?
I don't know if I fear connection because I crave it, and I'm not. I feel like I'm not afraid of getting my heart broken. Like I'm pretty brave when it comes to love. I think because I don't know, but I definitely have been in situations where like I felt like I'm not allowed to leave and like I have to stay out of obligation because I can't hurt them, which hasn't been fun. Yeah.
So what is it that so you say you don't fear connection, but you do have like an aversion to, I don't know, most relationships, I guess. So is it just that you have like a high standard of what is a worthwhile connection for you?
Do you mean as in terms of like friendships or like relationship?
Yeah, friendships.
Friendship. Yeah, I think I do have high standards now because the peace that I've created with myself is worth so much to me that I'm not willing to give that up for other people. And I think in the past I did give it up for other people and they don't even appreciate it. Like they're not there when you go through a hard time or like it's just not worth it. Like I think I don't mean to judge people, excuse me, or like where they're at on their journey and how they treat other people, but I think that unless we connect on some way and you're bringing value to my life, like I don't see the need to invest that much. And you know, I don't mean to be, I was going to say the C word then, but I'm pretty sure that constitute like a swear word. But like it's not even about like, I don't know, I think it's just people are just so different. And I think I've spent so much of my life just trying to get everyone to like me, especially when I was younger, that I just gave so much of myself. And I think that's the bottom line. I think that when I'm in a friendship or relationship, whatever, I give so much to myself, like that I have to be getting that back. And it's not necessarily how much they're doing for me, but like I have to be getting a real a friendship from that, like a connection from that, I feel. Yeah. But like I resonate with what you say with like the expectations people put on you. I feel like that's such a big one that I've been realizing over the past year in particular. You know, and when you say no, it's interesting who gets mad and who doesn't. Like, and if they get mad, you kind of realize that they don't really care about you. Like, but like I always, I feel like I'm just not living up to people's expectations sometimes. But at the end of the day, like if that's how I feel, then they don't get it, you know. So it's okay to try and let them go, and that's the bottom line. You have to be okay to be alone, to have boundaries. I think okay being alone.
Yeah, I think people who have expectations and then get angry when you don't meet them, they're without realizing it, and they might have the best intentions, but what they're doing is they're seeing you as a means to their own ends, and their happiness about you depends on you doing what they want you to do.
Yeah,
they don't want you to do what's best for you. They want you to do what's best for them.
Yeah, and fit into their life and like
Yeah, and I mean, that's sort of how we're conditioned to see relationships. Like, it's not like an evil thing; it's an unconscious thing.
Yeah,
like, and like I know that because that was my model for most of my life. Is like I would try to push people to do things that I wanted them to do, that I wanted them to do, regardless of their feelings. Like it's a form of manipulation.
I think we can all resonate with that though.
Yeah. Have you done that?
Yeah. I mean, like no particular thing comes to mind, but I can remember like even things like trying to push people to go out with me, like as in like go out in the town with me and stuff. Like, come on, you got to live once and shit like that. It's really, I just want someone to go in the town with. Like, you know, this is when I was like really young, but like just, you can, it's like when you're trying to like bend reality in a way, like you're trying to bend the future timeline so that it suits you and the people around you suit you. And it's almost like tyranny in a way, like if you really think about it, like, and so there's something to like letting go and just letting everything take its part. I mean, that's scary, right? Like letting go of control, surrendering, trusting, whatever. Even like a micro example of that is like we just had a real problem trying to set up like 2 new microphones for the podcast. And we just had to just let it go and say, well, that's not how it's meant to be today. We just got the one again, but like, I definitely resonate with that but it's interesting because you say manipulation, but it's an unconscious manipulation, isn't it? Like to a degree anyway, like, I find that interesting.
Yeah. Like for me, it mostly took the form of intellectual control. So to me, it was super important. If I believed something passionately, I had to convince my friend or my girlfriend or whatever, and I would use any forceful tactic available to try to make them think what I wanted them to think. And I didn't set out to do that like with a clear vision. I didn't know what I was doing, but it is tyrannical. It's
interesting when like you also think you know better for the other person and like your intentions might be good. Like I've noticed I've done this with people. Like I want to heal them sometimes and I'll be like, no, you need to do this and you need to do this, and I'm trying to get them to do, and I do think I'm doing it in their best interest, but I've learned that's definitely not the best way to go about it. I think the only way you can teach people is to lead by example, and that's it. Like you just can't, like, and that attachment to try and to is going to cause both people so much suffering. Like, I guess to me the theme of this, it comes back to is just, surrendering control and trusting in a way.
Yeah, and what makes that really hard is that most other people don't do that. So you're going to be in lots of scenarios where other people will be trying to manipulate the outcome to the way they want it. And you just have to rise above that and just sit there and just accept that, it might not go the way that in your heart of hearts you would most want it to. Yeah. And there's nothing you can do about that. And you will probably lose. If that's the sort of people you surround yourself with, and like whether it's like in jobs or like in friendship groups or whatever, the people who are the most determined to manipulate will be the loudest voices.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like our world. That's what politicians are the people who are the most determined to get what they want. And they're the ones that have the power.
Yeah, right.
So like to not go down that path, you're surrendering power.
Yeah, right.
To other people, which is a bit scary, I guess.
It's hard, like, wait, what do you mean by that? Can you expand on that?
Well, I think in our society, it's like, you know, a dog eat dog world, I guess. Like the most aggressive, the most egotistical, and the most selfish people get rewarded for acting on those instincts. And so, like, let's say you've got like a Buddha or a Jesus Christ or whatever, they won't stoop to those levels, and so they'll just be crushed. Like that, they won't have power. They'll be put in prison, or they'll be silenced, or the media won't give them a voice. So yeah, it's a world that's geared towards those who manipulate and dominate.
I feel like that's interesting because I kind of don't see it like that. Like, I definitely agree that, you know, our world rewards these things and these people, quote unquote, get ahead. But I don't necessarily feel like if I don't try to bend other people, that means I'm bent by others, like, or that I lose my power. Like, I feel like what I'm surrendering is not to someone else's will, but like the universe, like, and I kind of trust that that'll be right. And like, yeah, I guess it begs the question of like, if someone's trying to control you or like bend you to their will, then like you can put up a boundary and say no and kind of tap out in a way, you know what I mean? Or like, I mean, maybe this is an ignorant point of view, but I just, because in a way, like you could say like, you know, Jesus was kind of, you know, arrested and like killed and everything, but to say his power was taken away from him, like, I mean, I feel like that power of that story still resonates, you know, so. And I like the cool stories of like, or maybe it's not cool, but like the philosophers and stuff in ancient Greece who, you know, were getting arrested and things for their points of views, but they still live on. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's very valid. And there's different types of power, I guess. There's like physical material power, like money and guns and stuff. And then there's like metaphysical power and like the power of the spirit and like the one man standing against the tanks in Tiananmen Square. The power of that, like he has refused to surrender and he died for it, but you know, he kept his integrity and like he lived his truth.
He died with honor.
Exactly. And we're all going to die one day anyway. So
you
like,
may as well die with honor.
Yeah. And I mean, and the example that sets to others too. So yeah, it's not as black and white as what I was saying. And yeah, I think that's our consolation is you have to look at like, are you living in a way that you can hold your head up and you feel good about yourself? If you are, then maybe that's a pretty good consolation for like not being able to control people in the material world.
Not just a consolation, but almost like your vote into a different world. Like, because I was about to ask you, like, what do you feel is like kind of the cure for like this shit world? I mean, that's a bit of a loaded question, so we don't have to go into that. But like, what do you feel like could cause change? Like, do you think if we had enough people who did like die with honor or have that mindset, the tide would change? Or
no, because I mean theoretically yes, but it's never happened. So there's got to be a reason for that, and the reason is that most people won't do that. But I guess what I would say is the solution, and this again is talking about like a different kind of power. The solution is to accept that the world is unfair and brutal and bad things happen. and also to see that lots of good stuff happens, and just accept it the way it is. Because I think most suffering is caused by expectations of things being different, and people have always had those. Like, people have always throughout history felt that we live in such a horrible world, and they've, like, if you're a billionaire, you think it's horrible if you have to get downgraded to like living like a normal person. It doesn't matter what you have, you're still going to be, the more you have, the more expectations you have. And I think most humans are just dissatisfied. So the solution is like inside yourself, I think, to, and look, that sounds pretty lame. And if you can't see that, then it's shit, obviously. But yeah, if you can find acceptance within yourself, then a lot of those problems don't seem like such big problems.
Yeah, it almost comes back to that foundations in a way that we were talking about earlier. But I like that you kind of touch on that yin-yang. There's always going to be darkness. Like, I have a theory that, like, the day that we declare, like, world peace is the day the aliens show up for a war. Like, there always has to be an external force that you're pushing against, I think. But, yeah, it's interesting because the war is within ourselves, isn't it? Like, finding satisfaction. There's a quote, it's one of my favourite quotes. I don't know who it's by, but it says World War III is spiritual. I kind of really believe that. Like, I really believe that the war's not out there, it's inside ourselves, and like a shift in consciousness is the only way things would change. Yeah, but I guess I have more of an optimistic view than you do. Like, I suppose my view is that things can get better and things can change, and maybe if it was like normal to be better and not be manipulative and egotistical and all those things, that it'd be shameful to be that, and so the tide would kind of change. But then it would be the question, well, then what's the next opposing force? You know, what's the next challenge? What's the next darkness? Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think possibly our idea that like the world is flawed and we need to aim for like a non-flawed world it's never going to happen. Like, it's always going to be flawed, even if it gets better or a little bit better or a lot better. Like maybe reality is always going to have, well, I suspect it will always have the yin and yang element. Like, there's always going to be suffering. There's always going to be unfairness.
Do you reckon it could be possible, though, that over time that we take away the suffering caused by humans, or at least a lot of it, so the suffering that we experience in life is really just, natural disasters or illness and things like that?
It's possible, but I don't see any template for there not to be people that will hurt other people.
That's actually a great point, because there is no template. We haven't seen it before.
Yeah.
I'm more positive in thinking that, like, that, to me, that doesn't mean it's not possible. But it's actually something I've been thinking about lately, actually. It's just like, how do you create something if you have no mold or idea of what it looks like? Like, for example, let's say that your mum died when you're like 1, and like you go through the stage of psychology where you're like reparenting yourself, and you have to develop your inner mother voice, but you never had a mother. So like, how would you know how to mother yourself and how to develop that voice? Like, do you model it on like what you've seen on TV and other people do it, or do you build upon it incrementally, or like, is it something innately in us? But that's something that I've actually been pondering for a while. Is like, how do you create something when you don't know what it looks like? I think I was struggling with this when I started to get happy, and I was like, I don't know what happy looks like. And it's kind of like walking in the dark. But then, I don't know, I was thinking about this the other day, and like, maybe that's like in my world anyway. I feel like that's kind of the definition of innovation, like pushing on the boundaries and creating where there was nothing created before. Maybe, like, yeah. So anyway, that was a bit of a tangent, but point being, like, I think maybe it is possible to create that template out of nothing,
Yeah, and also I think that brings to mind like just imperfection. Like, there's like, we have an idealized vision of what everything looks like. So like, okay, you're a kid and you have two parents and a dog or whatever, and that's like your default template for childhood. And if you don't have that, then you're less, or like you're lacking something.
Right.
But reality is really complicated, and like every single human lives their own unique scenario that has its own factors. And yeah, that's why I think the answer is more about finding acceptance of situation you have and trying to make the best of it.
Yeah,
and like,
okay.
Not going like, oh, I didn't have a mum, so therefore I can never be like other people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you were never going to be like other people anyway. Like, you're going to be yourself, and you just have to find your own, like you said, create your own model for what a good full life looks like with the circumstances you have.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with like that acceptance. Like, there's so much wisdom to that, accepting where you are. And yeah, like, what are some things for you that have been like that? Like, I'm guessing pain is one.
Yeah, that's kind of like selfishly the first thing I thought about is like, so I've had chronic pain for a couple of years, and I've been like, okay, my life is not going to be full or normal or good until I get rid of that pain. But, you know, maybe that pain is just part of my life now. So, you know, some people lose an arm and then, or like they can't walk, and that's just their life.
Yeah.
So it's insane to spend your whole life fighting against what is reality. Instead, maybe I just have to go, okay, this is what I have. Could be a lot worse, could be better, but this is what it is. Mm-hmm. And like, okay, what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you can apply that to like everything.
Do you believe in like trying to find the lesson to it in a way that you can be grateful for it happening? Like, do you believe in that way of thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like pain has slowed me down, forced me to become aware of my body, and it's helped me like become more spiritual, for want of a better word.
Yeah. I think that mindset, finding meaning, I think has been so important for me getting out of depression. Like, yeah, which I think is why I like Viktor Frankl's book so much, Man's Search for Meaning. Existentialism, just if you can fossick through the shit and find the gem of wisdom, then it's all worth it. And I really believe that, and it makes life better. I have another theory as well that like sometimes I feel like when you do accept things like as they are, like truly in your heart accept them, you kind of like get the reward of actually getting what you let go of. Like, I think a classic example is that it's like, let's say, you know, you love someone, they don't want to be with you, whatever. And if you love someone, you let them go, and then you let them go. And maybe that's what they needed to actually be like, oh no, it's safe for me to leave and come back here. Like, if they don't want me out of possessiveness, then you kind of get the thing that you like had accepted. Like,
do you have any examples of either generally like gaining wisdom from a hardship, or of that what you were just talking about?
I'm trying to think. I feel like this lesson's come to me over and over again, but now I'm trying to think of specifics. I think a lot of it was accepting that my dreams weren't going to come true. I think, like I put my heart and soul into my business, and I thought it was my way out and my way to make a living doing what I loved, and, you know, having like illnesses myself, making it difficult for me to do 9 to 5. I thought this is the thing that I can do. I can change the world, like. And then when that became apparent that wasn't really going to work and my business wasn't going to succeed, I think that's one of the hardest things I've had to accept. Like, and it came back to just being happy where I am, like, was the big lesson behind that. And I've heard in psychology that like loss of dream can be one of the biggest, like, the hardest things a person goes through, along with like death of a parent. And I kind of feel like I went through a pretty bad bout of depression, like, after it. But I kind of just had to accept, like, my vision of the world, like, not even my vision of the world, my vision of my path forward wasn't true, and I had to let go of that, and that was very difficult for me. And I think that's a common thing for me is I'm always trying to see my path 10 steps forward ahead, and I've had to let go of that, and I try to just let life take me like a leaf in the wind now, is how I try to think of it, because I have no control over it. I mean, to a degree you can kind of put point, the direction you want to go in, I think. And I think intention is good for setting that direction, but then up to a certain point, you just got to surrender. And yeah, I think that's a lot of what I learned from that.
Would you go as far as being able to look at it as something that helped you and that you're almost positive about, or is it still painful?
It was a blessing for sure. I see that now because I look at it now, and that was me still trying to have one foot in each world. Like I was still trying to make something in the mainstream world. And I've since realized that I just don't belong in that world. And also like I was running myself into the ground doing that business. Like I put it before everything, like my health. And so, if I had been successful, even if I had heaps of money, I would still have that mindset and I would still probably be unhealthy. And so it was a blessing. And I think as well now, like someone reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to work on this art project with Bitcoin? And I'm so excited about it that I honestly feel like the reason why new clothing didn't work out is so I could learn what I need to learn so I could apply it to this. And even if this doesn't work out, then this is another stepping stone. And I really have faith in that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Good way of looking at things.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever feel like where life's meant to take you? Do you feel like you surrendered to that, or do you have like a good plan of like where you want to go? Like what's that like for you, like planning your future?
For the most of my life, it's been like what you were saying. Like I've had a vision of like, all right, I'll get to this point and then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I have no expectation of being happy.
Mm.
But then, like you, I realised that, over time, like the plan changed, or like, maybe I don't want that anymore, or I don't want to make the sacrifices required. And now I think I'm closer to the opposite, where I actually don't think there is an end point. The only end point is death.
Mm-hmm.
And life is it's just a stage, it's just I happen to be alive, and I'm trying to avoid the notion of like I have to make it a certain thing or I have to get to a certain point, because I'm pretty sure that I'll never get there. Like I'm never going to get to a point where I wake up and go, yeah, I'm here. This is perfect. I don't have to do anything else. Now I can be happy. I think it will always be something ahead.
Yeah.
And the route to happiness is to just enjoy the day that you're in at that time.
Yeah, it's like, because I used to look at it as like, I'd picture where I am and then I'd picture where I was if I won the lottery, right? And it's this like bright light in the sky, right? Yeah. Over there. And so I would like basically be trying to climb a ladder to get to that place. Like that's how I looked at it. And in doing that, my happiness was over there. And I think Jordan Peterson talks about this, like we're chasing false goals. Like that was a false light, And so I think like now my view is that like light, I try to think of it in two ways. Like one of it is like, it's the little things in life, really. Like it's you wake up in the morning and it's a blue sky and you feel the sun on your face. Like that's the feeling that we're searching for, Like I feel like I have to try and find those feelings all throughout the day. And the other way I've been kind of pondering about this lately is I try to look at it as like a light inside myself, like which for me is just like good feelings or like a feeling of love, even like the love of my cat, does something cute or stupid. It's so dumb. Like that's a good feeling, and that's something inside of me, and I can look inside myself for that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the thing is, the paradox is that if you are focused on the future and fixated on these like goals, you generally don't notice those moments, those little happy moments.
Yes, exactly.
Because you're just lost in like your brain is just racing off into the distance, and you don't actually. It's the whole like smell the roses thing, but you just don't do that.
That's so true. I have like a rule with myself, like no matter what I'm doing, no matter how important it is, like if the cat sits in my lap and like I need to get up and do shit, I just sit and pat the cat. Like that's a nice moment,
That's so good.
That's the kind of things you have to like
Yeah, and I think that's where the shift has come for me. Little things like that. Is there anything you want to talk about?
No. No, I don't have anything.
It's different talking in front of the microphone, isn't it?
Yeah.
A little bit. But yeah, you seem really happy lately.
Yeah. I am, but I still wake up with dread sometimes.
Yeah.
So, like, there's still fear in my subconscious. So yeah, still more exploring to do, like to figure out where that's coming from. But maybe it'll always be there. Maybe that's just life, and like pain or other things. It's just something you just have to accept.
When you say like you wake up with dread, is that what does that look like?
Just like just existential dread. Like you just feel like, the world's really bleak and scary, and I don't want to be alive, and like, what am I doing here? What's the point of my life? That kind of shit.
Yeah.
And it usually only lasts for like a few minutes.
I was going to ask, like, how do you actively have to like pull yourself out of that? Like, do you actively address it, or?
I think sometimes I just ignore it and it just goes away. But I think then it probably lingers into your day, maybe.
Yeah.
Whereas if you stop and like sort of consult your inner self, and maybe you can identify like, is there a reason for it? Like, is something stressing me out, or that can help to put it in perspective.
Yeah, I really resonate with that. Like, I wake up some days and it's just like, fuck.
Hey, first one, that's pretty good.
Yeah, true. Actually, this like coin box is so ridiculous. It's like Pikachu, and you put the coin on the button, and then Pikachu comes out and like steals the dollar.
High tech.
It's like $15. I wish we had a video of this actually.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm glad you swore.
Yeah, but but my attitude is like, F this, F life, F everything, like, what's the point? But then like I'll do a lot to coax myself out of that. So meditate, journal. Usually journaling is the best thing for me for that. But it's interesting because I feel like I have this part of me that's just always defeated. Like there's a part of me that's just always like that. And I'm like, well, do I try and change her, or do I like, just, is it like what we're talking about? I don't know if we talked about it in the last episode or if we just talked about this about, how Brene Brown said, I still have my neuroses, they've just become irrelevant. Like, do I try to build a me that's separate to that? Like my psych said, I think the best advice she ever gave me was, don't focus on changing the bad thoughts in your head, but focus on growing the new you that is separate to them. And so that a lot of that, positive self-talk and stuff, is me building a separate me that's almost the me that I identify with now, I think that's helped too. But then I do wonder, I'm like, is this always going to be here? And is that just my life now? Like I just have to carry her with me and, or sometimes I think maybe if I like elevate my, like through meditation and my thoughts so much that like I'll just leave that voice behind. Because it's interesting, like the last time like I drank, like I used to be a big drinker when I was like, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. And then I stopped drinking. And the last time I drank was at when Geelong won the grand final. Had like six drinks. And like the thoughts that were coming back were like really negative thoughts I haven't had in a long time. Like self-hate, shame, just it was insane. It was like, whoa, like this is, and there are theories that like alcohol lowers your vibration. And I really believe that because it's like it put me back in a state of myself that I haven't been in a long time. And it was actually interesting because I realized like, I just don't tap into that state anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like it's almost like I've elevated above that. And so I wonder, like, is it possible to elevate above this defeat feeling one day? I feel like I kind of got a glimpse of that, to be honest, when I was doing the fast. Like a lot of people say they do it for like spiritual reasons. You like, because the theory is that like doing a fast, you clean out your cells, like clean up all the dead cells and all the damaged tissue and stuff in your body, and even things like like feces and stuff that's been stuck in your intestines, like little bits, it all gets cleared out. And so a lot of people believe that all of that holds energy. And so when you do a fast, you clear that out. And you clear out all that energy. And that was definitely put me in a, like, even after 3 days, put me in a different state of consciousness, I think, like, slightly. And it kind of made me feel like I was elevating in a way. And I was like, this is really interesting. I think there's something to this. Yeah. But, so I try to think it's possible to leave those big feelings behind.
Yeah, I think it's a worthwhile thing to aim for, but I don't think we should be too hard on ourselves if we can't get there, because I think it's very human to feel that way. That it comes back to that like eternal dissatisfaction, and life is scary, and everyone's experienced trauma in some way, and so we have a good reason to be scared, and also we know we're going to die. So that's like the ultimate existential dread. So if you can restrict it to like your subconscious sometimes lapsing into that state every now and then, that's not too bad, as opposed to like dwelling on it all day every day when you're like super depressed and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. The jury's out, I reckon, on that one.
I reckon that's a really good point, actually, because even things like wanting to elevate your thoughts, whatever, through fasting or whatever you do, it's like, I think you have to not get attached to that actually happening. Yeah. Like, just treat it like a puzzle or a game, like something fun. Like, or else if you're just like, I have to get better, I have to do this, then you're doing the same thing we were talking about before, which is putting your happiness over there once you achieve this, and it's like, you know, the same thing coming through the back door. Like, so yeah, but yeah, I think that's a big one.
How, would you say that in the past you were in that state, like, frequently or a lot when you were like awake and active and stuff?
Like that defeatedness?
Yeah. Like when you were at the height of your depression and stuff, was that a common sort of feeling?
I honestly think that it's been basically my internal monologue for like most of my adult life.
Yeah.
And I think honestly a lot of that is because of having like chronic insomnia. So like think about if you have only had 3 hours sleep, what your mindset's like, and then have 3 hours sleep the next night, and then do that for like a month straight, you become really apathetic. Like, and I think I just kind of, internally just became really apathetic and just really like kind of numb to the world in a way. Like, because I feel like I had to learn I can't take my life out on other people, like that irritation and stuff. So like, I think that became my internal monologue. That's like my being is just like defeat. That's me in a way. And so I feel like I've been like that to varying degrees for most of my life. But I think when I was at depression, it just got overwhelming. I couldn't just keep going anymore. And then I think building a different me with even things like some of my friends laugh at me because like the music I listen to is like positive affirmation music. Like it's just like, yeah. It's funny because my Spotify rap came out and it said that your most listened to genre is high five. I'm like, that's the hippiest thing I've ever done. I'm like, high five is a genre. But like, the positive affirmations, I feel like they've reprogrammed my mind in a way, or at least they've created a new mindset that has allowed me to counteract that defeat. Like, and I think I'm always going to have that. Yeah.
Yeah, you've made a lot of progress.
I made heaps of progress, yeah. Proud of myself. Yeah. What about you? Do you feel like you've had different degrees of that dread?
Yeah. I think that's why I think I figured out that my psychology has always been to latch on to something and obsess with it and like immerse myself.
Yeah, okay.
And that's to escape the feeling of dread. So
okay, right.
Pretty
so
much
escapism. So.
Yeah, like every waking minute is like immersion in distraction.
Right.
And then when I'm left to my own thoughts, it's just like all the fear and the anxiety comes in. And yeah, that's how I always used to be.
And when was the peak for that for you, do you reckon?
Probably the the last few years before I sort of had a breakthrough. It was, just wasn't comfortable in my own brain. And, but now that feeling only really happens either like when I'm asleep or when I'm like particularly stressed or something's like got me on edge. So it's pretty cool. Like you can rewire your psychology.
Totally believe that, for sure. Like, what was the transition period for you like? Like, obviously first you became aware that you were doing that, and then, what did that look like?
I reckon within a few weeks, I felt better than I've ever felt before. So it went from like the lowest despair I've ever felt to like looking at life in a whole different way in a few weeks. And the key was all I had to do was actually recognize what was going on and be like, hey, you know, this is what you've always done. It's never worked. Maybe explore some other possibilities.
Yeah, and I love like the term used, your outlook on life, or like your outlook, the way you looked at things. Because even for me, I feel like gratitude has been a massive one for me. Like when I first, started practicing gratitude, it was just like a buzzword. I didn't really get it. And like I would try and write in my diary every day 3 things I'm grateful for, but it was a chore. I didn't really feel it. Yeah. But then like the more I progressed, I feel like now I really understand that gratitude is an attitude, and like it's just turning your point of view like 180 degrees and just looking in a new direction, being like, actually, you know what? Like I've got so much, and like if I look at it like this, and like I'm actually really blessed, and like things are really good, and you can choose what way you look, and that gives you your power back in a way. And to go back to Viktor Frankl, one of his quotes is, "Everything can be taken from man, but the last of the human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude towards any given situation," something like that. So, I mean, there's so much power in that, I think, and I think that helped me a lot with reprogramming my mind.
And the thing about that is, like, it sounds like too simple and like really, really like ridiculous. Like, oh, you fucking hippie. Like, if it was that simple, everyone would do it.
Exactly.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But like, people who say that have probably never actually tried it. They've never actually done it with full commitment. Yeah. And when you do, it's like, it is actually simple, but you need to do it. Like you can do it. People just don't want to.
Yeah. Right. It's so true. Because on the one hand, I think there's a lot of people who like that poor me, life's shit, the world's shit. Like there's a fucked up joy. There's a joy that comes from that. So like I think people get addicted to that as well. But also, what did I say? Damn, I got distracted by the dollar. Wait, I'm going to put it on the Pokemon picture. But this comes back to like what we're saying before we started recording, how we're talking about there seems to be like 3 stages to something, and that's like 1, you become aware of it. So let's say gratitude practice. You become aware of it. Oh, okay, like, a lot of people rate it. I don't get it.
Yeah.
2, there is kind of like the practicing of it, or like the actually trying to understand it. And then I think the final stage is actually like the embodiment of it, of like, oh, I get it. And I think there's so many things like that. Like I think the yoga's one for me. Like I don't get it, but I trust that there's something to it. And I think as well, actually, like one of the only ways you can really help people if you want to, or guide them if you want to, is you can't make someone embody something or understand it, but you might be able to plant seeds, and put it on their radar. But then they have to like take it if it resonates, or leave it if it doesn't. But yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. Like I think I know, say a year ago or a bit more, maybe a year and a half ago, if I had heard this conversation, I'd be like, don't believe it. Yeah. It's bullshit. Yeah. Don't believe it. And part of that would be that maybe I don't want to believe it, but mostly would be I actually just didn't, because I had no frame of reference to that. Yeah. Like, no, life is miserable. My brain is depressed. I just wouldn't trust it.
Which is actually smart though. Like you really shouldn't just trust blindly what people are saying. Like, yeah.
you actually have to experience it to recognize that it's true.
Yeah, definitely.
Like until you've actually gone there and tried it and really had a go at it, it's going to sound stupid to you.
Yeah, I think you can't really understand the value of it until you've really gone through what you need to go through to really appreciate it, understand it for yourself. Like even people who write, 3 things every day they're grateful for, maybe that's like the wrong thing to do because they're forcing themselves to do something they don't even really, just because I mean, for some people that's probably true. For others, it probably might be the steps they need to take to actually embodying it. But, I'm sure for a lot of people, it's just until you get it, you can't. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And by doing that, by forcing yourself, you're just confirming to yourself that it doesn't work.
That's such a great point.
Whereas if you wait until you're actually ready and want to do it, then maybe it will work.
Yeah.
Like your mindset is important.
That's so true. Do you have like anything else in your life that you feel like that kind of applies to?
I think like just anything really. Like if you do anything going through the motions with you're doing it out of obligation, you're probably not going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And you won't get it. Like you won't see the benefits and you'll give up. Like you have to want to do it. It's just like whether it's a job, a uni course, like anything. It's vital to actually believe in it, I think. Like, or to believe enough to want to try it.
I reckon I'm like that with exercise right now. Like I force myself to work out a lot. And I do like working out. My motivation is mostly like, you're a piece of shit if you don't do this. Like, and so now I'm like trying to get back into working out regularly, but I can't. I have to find the one that lights me up inside. You know what I mean? Or the routine or the whatever. And I'm not forcing it because I know that's going to be detrimental. Like, yeah. But even exercise for people who don't exercise probably think, oh yeah, bullshit that you feel better when you exercise or whatever. But like you actually do, don't you? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to find a form of exercise that really does make you feel good.
I actually think
so that's the reward.
I actually think like it's like a bit off topic, but like I've recently found out I have polycystic ovaries, which has like caused a lot of my health shit over the last like 15 years I didn't even know about. But I read this book called Fast Like a Girl, and it's by Dr. Mindy Pelz. And it's interesting because she talks about how like your hormones change so much over the course of a month. And how she put it is like, okay, like she mapped out the month and is like, well, at this time of the month, like you should, testosterone is high, so you should do strength training. At this times, you really need to chill out, so just do like yoga or walking. And this time you can do heaps of cardio. And it was that to me blew my mind because I was like, I've never thought about it like that. Like I've always thought about exercise as like, okay, within 1 week we need to do 3 strength workouts, like abs, arms, legs, at least 2 runs, whatever else, like a walk or whatever. And so I'd do that throughout the week. And then by the time I did that, which is a pretty good accomplishment to do all that, it's Monday again. I have to do it again. So it's like it went to nowhere. And I think I'm realizing that a lot of the problem with my life is that I'm thinking about things on a weekly basis. When right now I'm going through kind of a transitional period where I'm thinking about my life in like a monthly cycle. And like, I'm actually excited. Like I've been thinking like, oh wow, cool. Like those days I'll do like strength and I'll do like 3 in a row, like those days. And then I'm actually wanting to go to yoga and like start trying to get into yoga because I just joined a new gym that has it. And I'm like, I don't know, that outlook is like, I actually feel like I've finally found the thing that for me will work. And it's like, that's probably why it's never worked before. And it's kind of crazy to think that like I never thought about it in like a monthly cycle way ever. Like it's so dumb. Like why did I not think, our world doesn't teach it. It's very masculine and whatnot. But like, I honestly think that for me, that's going to be a game changer for me enjoying exercise again. Because it's like some days when you feel like shit, it's like, oh yeah, because your hormones are like, I was going to say the F word, crazy. So like, that's why I don't feel like running on those days. And maybe I should actually listen to my body instead of having like this methodical set out, calendar of what I need to do. So yeah.
No, I relate absolutely, and I'm on a similar phase where, my method now is actually just to listen to my body. Like, I got sore legs today. I'm not going to do the leg workout I was hoping to do. Like, just really fucking simple. Like,
just joking.
You just like, Yeah, and so some weeks you might do less and you feel like, oh, I didn't quite get as much done as I want, but then maybe the next week you feel really energetic, so you exercise every day. And it's just a different way of looking at it. And, yeah, we're all programmed to, try and be efficient and to, not listen to our bodies, just to, force things.
Yeah.
Go to work even if you're tired and sick. Mm-hmm. Go to school, do your workouts. We create these problems for ourselves, but it's because that's how our minds are trained. And, I reckon intuition is probably a good guide to, what you should be doing.
Yeah, it's interesting because, we had this, very methodical approach. We have to do this, we have to do this. And it's like there's an inner tyrant in your mind saying you have to do this. And it's usually mean, saying, you're a piece of shit if you don't do it.
Yep.
And it's how are you free if you are being ruled by that tyrant in your mind? How can you say you're free, know?
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, that tapping in, trusting my body, listening to my body, that's been a big, big thing for me the past couple of years. And, I think chronic illness or chronic pain will do that too. You've got to listen to your body. Yeah. I think it was really scary for me because for 2 years, if I didn't listen to that inner tyrant, I stopped working out. And that was really scary because it's especially having a history of eating disorders and body image, it's shit, well, what's going to happen to me if I don't listen to that voice? But I had to do it. And I did gain 20 kilos, but I had to go through that because I had to find who I am without that. And I had to find motivation from a different place, from my heart, which is respect my body, love my body, rather than I'm a piece of shit if I don't do this. And yeah, that transition period is really hard. But where I'm at now, I feel I'm in the best health ever. I'm so happy. My fitness could be better, and I'm working on that. But I just feel great. So, I've lost the 20 kilos now, so I'm pretty much back to where I was before. So, you do get there, but it's a journey. Yeah.
I think what you said there is about your inner tyrant. It comes from fear.
Yeah.
It's if I don't have an inner tyrant, I will be a fucker.
Yeah.
So I have to have it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly right. You had to find a motivation that wasn't fear.
Yeah.
And now you have one. Now you're looking at it more from I want to feel good. I want to be happy.
Yeah.
Not I'll be a piece of shit if I don't.
Exactly.
So it's the same, probably similar result, but you're not fighting yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it comes back to what we were saying before, that inner tyrant, the fear was I need to be over there. I need to have that body.
Yeah.
And it's chasing that light outside yourself again versus, and I've spoken to you about this, but how I kind of have this belief or theory that everything comes down to a choice between fear or love. And that's a great example. I think there's either fear, is your motivator, or it can be love. I love my body and I want to feel good. And yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect encapsulation of that idea. Yeah. And we could probably apply that to most parts of our lives. Imagine if everything you did was from a motivation of joy and love.
Yeah.
Instead of the terrible consequences of not doing it.
Because that's actually a thing, when you say you start to recognize that inner tyrant and you start to kind of play around with that, okay, you might be doing something different and be oh, that's that same voice. Okay, that's that fearful tyrant. My ego, maybe. Where else is it leading me through life? And then it kind of comes to a choice where it's all right, well, do I defy this voice and never listen to it again? Or is there a line where it has value and it's actually, helpful and I should let it take the lead? And, what do you think about that? Do you ever think that there's points where it has its place, or is there something that you kind of have had to learn to put it on a shelf and
Yeah, I think it's about, because sometimes the inner tyrant wants you to do things that are good and that will make you happy or will make your life better. So it's probably more about, you're saying, trying to identify a way of still doing that thing, but not having it as a tyrannical. So just, for me, my inner tyrant tells me to have stacks of books and to go through them methodically, even if I don't feel like it. I still want to read books.
Yeah.
So I just have to find a different way of conceptualizing reading books.
Yeah,
that
right.
Isn't turning it into a job.
That's a great example. And it's interesting because it's like, I think one aspect of it is like that the hierarchy needs to change where that inner tyrant works for you rather than you work for it. But it just made me remember that like internal family systems. So I might go through that a little bit quickly, but basically there's this theory in psychology that we have. So if you go through something in your life, let's say you're 4 years old and you're like, your dad is really angry or whatever. So there's a part of you that's really scared. And then to combat that, something in your personality will split a little bit. It's not like personality splitting. It's just like where you'll create someone, an aspect of yourself who can deal with that. So whether that's you get angry back or, you know, you self-soothe or something like that. So, and that's called fragmentation. So we have all these fragmentations in ourselves where as we grow older, as we deal with different situations, you know, we fragment. And then some of these different aspects of ourselves can be in conflict with each other. So internal family systems is basically having communications between those different parts. And so that inner tyrant is a classic example of what they call a protector. So that inner tyrant was created at some time in your psychology to protect you because at some stage you realize, shit, I'm not going to get love from, say, my mother unless I reach this standard. So we better reach this standard. And so it bullies you into reaching the standard because it's trying to help you. It's trying to like actually, you know, get you love or get you what you need to survive, especially as a child, you know, when you depend on your parents. So in that aspect, seeing it through that view, it's easier to not demonize it or hate that part. But what's actually really interesting is like if you do internal family systems therapy, you can actually communicate that part. And it's really interesting watching people do this where you go, well, okay, protector, like, what's wrong? Like, what's the problem? Like, why are you doing this? And you can actually get answers and you can actually say to it, like, how old do you think I am? And it'll often say, like, 4 years old. And you'll be like, okay, well, I'm like 31 now. Like, I don't need you anymore. And so what it can actually do is, like, transition into another part, you know, and you can step down from that role. And so you can, like, kind of change it through that therapy if it works for you, which I find really interesting. And it's actually therapy you can do yourself, but I've done it to myself a lot, and I've found it to be, I've had breakthroughs doing this. Like, I don't know if everyone is so receptive to it, but like, you can do something called chair work, which is like I'll put some resources in the description of the podcast, but you can like, you know, you can sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to talk to that protector side, and you sit in a different chair and you body that protector, and then you'd be like, and then you kind of talk to it, ask yourself questions and get out what you're feeling. And then you kind of stand up and be the mediator. Then you sit down on the other side and embody that aspect. And you kind of communicate between its different parts, which sounds crazy. It actually sounds like psycho. But, like everybody has it. And I think is that, yeah, it's been really, really effective for me. But anyway, I think that's like, a great example of that, protector who's really inner perfection, I think, the inner critic. And, yeah, just like talking to it, it's really just an aspect of you, and it's not good, I think, to demonize aspects of you. And yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
It was a real tangent.
Yeah, no, it was relevant though.
Yeah, but yeah, I try to think of like how that side of me is good because like discipline's obviously really good, right? Like, so. You know, if that helps me be disciplined, I try to think of it like that. And being methodical is good, but I need to get shit done. So,
it is discipline good? That's my question.
Interesting. I think it is because I think discipline equals freedom. Because if you, let's say you want to climb a mountain, but you're not very fit because you don't have discipline, then you can't climb that mountain, see the view from the top. Like, I think there's aspects of life that you just don't have available to you if you're not disciplined. So I think it is good, but I think the motivation is the question between is it good or bad. Like, yeah. What do you think?
I always was pro-discipline, but I actually think that, yes, it has its place, but I think it probably comes at a cost. So, like, the trade-off for being disciplined and pursuing your goals is that you miss out on other parts of life.
Okay.
Which, like for me, I missed out on being spontaneous
Right.
and on finding joy in like little things and smelling the roses, because I was always thinking about like, is this part of my task?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know.
I guess it comes down to that question again of like, what's it serving you rather than you serving it?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Because even things I think about, if you're really unhealthy and you need to, like, say, stick to a diet to be healthy, but you can't do it because you're not disciplined enough,
Yeah.
you know? Like, yeah. But
it has its place.
Yeah.
But you can have too much of a good thing.
Definitely. 100%. Yeah. Or even just being disciplined by other people, just following them.
Oh, yeah.
That's dangerous. Yeah.
I'm knackered.
Yeah, wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm talked out.
Okay, cool. That was a really good talk. I like that.
Yeah.
For the people listening, we have one microphone, but next time we'll have two, so it'll sound even better. Also, when we wrap it up, can we finish up talking about Zelda?
Oh yeah, sure.
I just want to like share our thoughts on it. So, how do you pronounce the one I'm playing now?
Ocarina of Time.
Oh yeah, okay. So on Nintendo Switch, you can download. They have like a whole library of Nintendo 64 games, and you can download that and play it. So I'm playing some of the old games because I love the old games. Like I go back and play them. I don't really like new games as much. And yeah, so I'm clocking that. I'm stuck at the Forest Temple. But we're talking about Breath of the Wild and how good of a game that is. But then we're talking about how the new one, do you know what it's called?
Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, this is my review. It's shit. It's the same that. It's lazy game development, I think. Yeah, I don't know what else I want to say about that. But like, I feel like I have a real problem with new video games these days. It's because they, I just feel like development's lazy now. Like any like game I'm playing where they're making me like run through a desert, I'm like, that is the laziest game development ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the more is more principle.
Yeah.
Of like, bigger is better. Everything's going to take longer, and then playing the game becomes like a job.
Yeah. Yeah, literally, it becomes a chore. Yeah, which is crazy when you feel like you're working when you're playing a game. Yeah. But you really like the Zeldas, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like, yeah, my favourite game series ever. But I actually like the 2D ones almost better than the 3D ones.
What are the 2D ones?
So the first, like, on the Super Nintendo, Link to the Past,
true.
and then they had them on the Game Boy and the DS and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just slightly more compact and like quicker paced and but yeah, still similar design principles.
Yeah, it's almost like Pokemon, sort of, isn't it?
Yeah, like in the way you walk around and stuff.
Yeah.
But like really good puzzles and stuff.
And Final Fantasy, I think like 3 in that was like that too. It's interesting playing games like that again. Yeah.
Old games are good.
Yeah. All right, we'll wrap it up now.
Cool. Right.
Yeah. I never know how to end this, but bye.
Hooroo.